Good afternoon. The time is now 4:38, and welcome to the December 18th, 2024 Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting. I am Pamela Boozer Struther, the committee vice chair and District 3 Board of Education member, and it brings me great pleasure to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, and I look forward to our work ahead. I do want to acknowledge the former chair of this committee, Dr. Kenneth Harris, who was the District 7 Board of Education member and served as vice chair of the Board of Education. He is no longer serving on the Board of Education, but I want to thank him for his commitment and his partnership as a board colleague. He added a great deal to this work, and I certainly will miss him and want to publicly acknowledge him. So moving on, Ms. Adeline, please call the roll.
Ms. Boozer Struther,
Present.
Donald Bell,
Present.
Kate Wonderlich,
Present.
Yahtzee Gomez, Joseph Jakuda,
Present.
Christina Walk,
Present.
Timothy Myers, Dorothy Morrison,
Present.
David Noto,
Present.
Beth Novick,
Present.
Ramon Pelincio Calvo, Benjamin Roche, Antoine Thompson, James Dubon Garcia, Maya Gudera,
Present.
Olivia Thomas, Sophia Villar, Michael Witherspoon.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. With a quorum present, the Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting will come to order. Item 1.3, adoption of the meeting agenda. If there are no objections, the committee shall adopt the December 18th, 2024 meeting agenda. There being no objections, the December 18th, 2024 meeting agenda is adopted. Item 1.4, approval of the meeting minutes. If there are no corrections, the committee shall approve the October 16th, 2024 meeting minutes as distributed. There being no corrections, the October 16th, 2024 meeting minutes are approved. Item 2.0, presentations. We will limit each member's questions and feedback to 2.5 minutes per round. There will be 2 rounds per agenda item unless a motion is taken for additional rounds. So starting with item 2.1, Director of Sustainability Report, the chair recognizes Ms. Morrison for the sustainability report.
Thank you, Pamela. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I don't have a whole lot to report since the last time we met. However, since the last time we met, PDCP Operations Department has been working to increase its renewable energy portfolio. It signed a power purchase agreement for rooftop solar for 6 of its new P3 schools, and we're expecting the installation, which is scheduled for the summer of 2025. The Blueprint Phase 2 schools will be delivered with rooftop solar, and the master RFP development is also in progress. PDCPS will also partner with Prince George's County government for a ground solar array project with AltaGas, so we're in discussions with that as well. And then in collaboration with the Schmidt Center and EcoAmerica, we held our first climate ambassadors training towards professional development credits, which was held in November. And the training focused on Climate Basics 101, and we had about 300 registrants. They included teachers, students, administration staff, and yeah, so that was kind of exciting. We do have a second training that's scheduled for sometime in January, and that focus is going to be on climate and environmental justice. So yeah, the purpose of these sort of engagements and professional development opportunities is to help raise the district's awareness about climate issues and engage all our stakeholders in leading impactful solutions. It's also in partnership with the Georges County Department of Environment. We are working to establish a sustainable career development program that will hopefully provide hands-on training and paid work experience for, the natural resources sciences for our CTE students, and also help us to generate a career pathway. In the grant arena, we also have been diligently applying for grant opportunities to help supplement our budget. As you all know, we are in a budget shortfall, and so we're trying our level best. So we did apply a few months ago for the EPA Clean Heavy Duty Vehicle Grant to further support electrification efforts, and we were awarded in December. So a few weeks ago, we learned that we were awarded for additional buses up to about 4. So I think counting correctly, and hopefully I don't get this wrong because people will be so upset. I think we're up to like 25 buses right now that we've acquired to date. Yeah, although not all 25 obviously are on the road because we are looking to have better charging infrastructure, and we are working on the Mullican bus lot site to help develop. Well, it was 90 buses, but we've had to downgrade that to 50 because of changing administration and uncertainty for funding. So that's been downgraded, but it's still a microgrid pilot that we're working on, and hopefully when that project is complete, we will have the needed infrastructure to run those electric buses. We also, again, in partnership with Department of Environment at the county level, we're able to apply for the EPA Community Change Grant, which is in the neighborhood of 20 million. So this is a partnership with the school system, the Department of Environment, and CASA of Maryland. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we hopefully will be awarded that grant as well. So with that said, any questions? That's all I have for the reporting.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Morrison. Your sound was going in and out a little bit, so if anyone
Oh
needs,
dear.
you may be asked to maybe repeat some sections. If
Okay,
it wasn't
sure.
everyone. So are there any hands? Anyone have questions about the report? Not seeing any. I will take chair's privilege to ask a question. I was wondering if you could repeat about the CTE and work opportunities that you mentioned.
Sure. So this grant, hold on a second. I'm trying to get on camera. I guess I am on camera. It finally happened.
We can now see you. Yep.
Yeah, so as part of the grant application, obviously with the Prince George's County Department of Environment, what we're proposing to do, or what they're proposing to do, because they approached us, is to develop sort of a program where we grow our own trees locally. So as you know, at the state level, there's a requirement of, I believe it's 5 million trees to be planted by 2031, something like that. And so, but a lot of those trees are coming from out of state. A lot of them are coming from the South, from the Carolinas, and it's very, very expensive to bring them up here. So the thinking is that we will engage students to help, grow these trees. So we'll have houses. So there'll be opportunities for the students to help build the greenhouse. So there's an organization called FACT, and I'm not sure what it stands for, but they do the construction part of the CTE. And so working with FACT, helping to build, not only build the greenhouse, but also provide opportunities for students to learn horticulture and things of that nature. So it's very exciting. And Department of Environment has assured us that even if we do not get the 20 million grant, they're still committed to this particular effort. So we will still continue to push through, maybe just do it at a smaller scale. So definitely it's exciting. So yeah. I think Joseph has his hand up.
Yep. So Joseph, and then followed by David Noto.
First, that was great news to hear that PGCPS was awarded a Clean Heavy Duty Vehicle grant for some electric school buses. I'm not sure if I missed it in the in the report, but I was wondering, are there plans also to apply for the new round of the EPA Clean School Bus Grant, which I think
Yeah.
applications are mid-January sometime?
Yeah, mid-January. Yeah, we had a CCAP meeting earlier today, and yeah, we mentioned that. So yeah, the plans are to go ahead and apply for those as well. And another thing also I didn't mention, because we haven't gotten it yet, but we are definitely going to be applying for the new round of MEA, Maryland Energy Administration grants that are coming offline. So they have, it's called the Decarbonizing School Programs, and they have different categories, category 1 through 4. And last year we were awarded in the category 2, which was, I believe, I'm trying to think of what category 2 was. Essentially, I think it had to do with lighting. And then the category 3 was net zero. Category 4, I'm sorry, was net zero. This go around, it's my understanding that they will also have funding for category 1, which is capacity building. So the long and short of it is we're going to apply for all those categories and see which one we'll be successful in.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you.
Sure. David Nito, am I saying that correctly?
Noto, that's fine.
David Noto, okay.
The question I had regarded the tree program that you were just discussing. Has there been any engagement with University of Maryland Extension or with the PG Master Gardeners program, since I know that they are looking for all sorts of assisted, like, ways to be getting in their hours?
Yeah.
So might be a
Yeah,
thing.
and that would be a yes. So of course I didn't go into the details of the measure of the grant proposal, but University of Maryland will be serving as one of the technical assistance providers. So University of Maryland, along with the County Department of Environment. So yeah, so they're definitely in the loop. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep, sure. And if anybody wants to, maybe I could get Cindy, if anybody wants to see, I think it's public knowledge right now. I'm not sure how EPA does it. Maybe they don't share it until it's awarded, but I'm happy to share a draft of what was submitted.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could chat about. I guess I would need more information about if now's the time or not to share the draft.
All right, I have to find out if I can.
Yeah.
One of those things I don't want to just put out there, but at some point you all will be able to see it. But I'm not sure when I can do that. But I'll follow up with Department of Environment and ask them when it's a good time.
Okay, great. And I see Christina has her hand up.
Yes, thanks.
Christina.
Hi. David's comment actually just reminded me of something. I'm curious if folks at the I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's within University of Maryland's. They have an energy innovations accelerator program, and I had a conversation with them recently, and we had talked about potential connections with PGCPS, the PGCPS system, to see about creating some kind of connection between the University of Maryland's focus on more college-age energy entrepreneurs and innovators, and connecting it into PGCPS system, especially through perhaps school climate clubs and creating potential hackathon opportunities or something. And I was hoping that they had reached out to you, but I am not sure if they have. And if not, I would be happy to try to create some connections there so that can happen.
Please do, because they have not connected with us. And is this program you said within the University of Maryland? Or is it?
It's a statewide, I mean, the hub is, I think, based at the University of Maryland, but they have received statewide funding from the state. And so their outreach is to the entire state, but they are looking to do more partnerships with local schools. And so I think the opportunities with PGCPS would be just enormous.
And this makes sure because I'm familiar with the MCEC, which is I think it's Maryland Clean Energy Center. Are they one and the same?
Yes, I believe they are hosting this energy entrepreneurs or energy innovation accelerator thing. I have to double check the name again, but yes.
Okay, because I know the executive director for MCEC. We've done business in the past, but I just have not nobody has reached out to me in terms of like
Okay.
partnering with schools. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure to connect you all. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, great. Thank you so much for all those items. I don't see any more hands. I'll pause for 1 second in case anyone has a new question. Also, we have promised a moment to acknowledge our student members and
Mhm.
to invite them to ask questions if they would like to at this time. Okay, I don't see them jumping on at this time, but oh, there's Michael. Okay, great. All right, go ahead, Michael.
I just wanted to say that the tree planting program sounds really cool. I've been looking into like going into horticulture, and I think that would be something
Wonderful.
students would really be able to benefit from. So I'm really happy to hear that's coming to the county.
Well, hopefully if we get the grant, it'll speed it up, but regardless, we are working with Department of Environment to make sure it happens.
Yeah, that's great. Always great to hear student feedback on if these programs
Definitely.
are attractive to our scholars. So thank you so much.
Yes, yes.
All right, well, we are ready to move on to our core presentation for today. As everyone knows, we are working through updates on the 8 priority areas of the plan, particularly 1 through 7, operational and curriculum. And today is priority area number 5, the full uh, operational actions, mitigation actions, and adaptation actions are related to reducing food waste and growing climate-friendly food. And I believe that today's presentation is more focused on the waste reduction side. And as a reminder, our goal for composting is the year 2030 rolled out in all of the schools. And I presume we could probably start to think about administrative buildings too. And then 2040 is the the physical waste reduction that we have categorized that I know Sarah will be taking us through. So at this time, moving item 2.2, I'm recognizing Ms. Morrison again to introduce the presentation. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. You said it all, Pam. So no need to add anything extra, but I just wanted to now introduce Sarah Campbell. Sarah is part of the Department of Sustainability and Resiliency team now since July 1st. So we are very happy and lucky to have her on board. And she focuses on our recycling efforts as well as our food composting. And, you know, in the near future, she's going to be expanding to bigger and more things as it relates to just general materials management and how we make sure we use less carbon intensive materials when we procure things. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah.
Okay, thank you. So I am Sarah Gillespie. I am the recycling technician in our new Department of Sustainability and Resiliency. I'm very happy to be there with Director Morrison and the group. So I have some slides that I would like to share, and part of it is actually a video, so I'm hoping the sound's going to work. So if somebody could just let me know if the sound does not come through, I would appreciate that. So let's see. Okay, is this coming through okay? Okay, great. So today I'm going to focus on food waste reduction in PGCPS. And so I guess the first thing I'd want to say about this is, we kind of have said food waste, and I think there's this maybe emerging more terminology of, looking at wasted food, right? Because kind of, that is really what we're focusing on, right? We don't want to waste the food. And so that can happen a lot of different ways. So some of the terminology I think is going to kind of more evolve into that in a lot of our documents and procedures and things. But first I'm going to show a video here from Heather Hills Elementary, which is one of our composting schools. And it really kind of shows many different aspects of what they're doing at the school level. So I'm going to start it. If you can't hear it, please someone jump in.
I don't think the sound's on.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any sound.
Yeah, me neither.
Not sure how to change that. I may need some technical assistance with that, but
And now, are you operating from your location, or is Cindy doing it?
so I've got my own slides. But if
Okay.
somebody else is able to show the video with the sound, I could send it to you real quick.
Yeah, try sending me the link. I'll see if I could have it work, play on my end.
Okay.
So, and it's cindy.adlin@pgcps.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing just for a second then. Do that.
And while we're doing that, I was remiss in mentioning during the report, I don't know if she's on, but we do have a new director for food and nutrition, Mary Kirkland. And she comes to us from Montgomery County, and I was gonna have her say a few words, introduce herself, but I don't know if she got a link. Cindy, if I know Kim had asked you to loop her in. I don't see her on here, but so she may not be able to say anything, but we do have a new food and nutrition director. So maybe during the course of the meeting, she'll pop up.
Okay, sorry about that. Cindy, can you tell me your last name one more time?
So it's A as in Apple, D as in Delta, L as in Lima, I as in India, N as in Nancy.
Share the presentation with you.
I guess we still don't have any sound, huh? Okay, well, we'll just look at the visuals.
So I'll narrate over it. I'll send you guys the video after. But so they start first talking about we have a lot of food waste, and then they explain how they do this in their, in their lunchroom, right? And so all the students help. Oh, you can run the video. I could just kind of go through it. They basically are sorting in their lunchroom, and you'll see the visuals of them with all the bins and how they're sorting with the compost. So did you want to run the video, Cindy, or are we just skipping that?
Can you run the video if you can, Cindy? Can you hit the play button? Thank you. Oops. My screen just went pink. I don't know if everybody else is experiencing that, but.
I was trying to put it in a different link so the volume would play.
Oh, okay.
So just bear with me here. Oh, the link is up right. Let's see. YouTube video.
If you could just run the video, I could just
Yeah.
I'll send it out to everybody so you can see the full thing, because of course the students are narrating the video, which is the best part. So I apologize for
No
this.
worries.
So they and if you go to full screen, if that's possible, but so this is part of, they were part of our composting pilot program. So they've been doing this for a few years now. And thing that's great about this video is they kind of run you through different parts of, how they're really making an impact on food waste. So, we had some information about 44% of our food is discarded, right? Which a little high, but anyway, so, here we talk about, right, where does it go? It goes to landfill, but we could do something better by, sorting our waste properly and for the food. So here you can see their setup, how they have compost, recycle, tray stacking, then trash. And this is our basic setup for our waste stations. And then here, you see the kids coming up, they know where things go, they know how to do it, right? So they've already gone through the trainings, they've had education. If there's contamination, they pull it out. They also have a share table. And the share table, which I'll talk about later, and here's some more information, it's another way for us to get the food eaten by the students, give them a second opportunity. And so they've utilized that, which has decreased their food waste. And then this little girl has a great, she talks more about their program and about some of the guidance for the share table. And so then they also, they showed this video for the school. So it was also talking about, our compost is picked up by this truck twice per week. Here it is showing it, so the kids can see. And then they also interviewed the building supervisor, who is a key part for, all of our waste programs. And so this building supervisor has been a great supporter. He's been, very gung-ho with the program. And so, they're asking him, from your perspective, what's important about the program? And so, his comments are things like getting the students involved, so he really is like, my advice to others would be get the students involved. They are the ones who are going to really, take this program, and they're asking him too, how has it impacted your trash amount? And he's saying, now I don't have to empty the trash as much because we're sorting into these other bins. Before we only had a trash can, now we have recycling, we have the share table, we have the compost bin. So it's really reduced our trash a lot. It's reduced our trash bags. It's reduced, the amount of work because the bins aren't being emptied as often. They can be left more than one lunch period sometimes. And so, the interview is really helpful. We've used this in some of our other trainings too, and talking to staff, and showing other schools and modeling this program for them. So hearing from their peers has been really great. So our champions, for the program have been awesome. And then also, they talked to him about, like, what's the strangest thing you've ever found in the bin, right? And so, that's a little bit of this. I think we could actually move forward on this. But so, the students doing the interview is, a really great part of this video. So I encourage you to watch it later. Sorry about that. But, this was helpful for us. Like, it was a good encapsulation of their program, but also helpful for us to show other schools, hey, you know, this is it. You get to see the cafeteria. You get to really, you know, hear from the people doing it, right? Not just us trying to kind of, you know, say, we want to work with you, let's do it. So I think we can move on from that. And then this little girl, you know, is a really great presentation here with her arms out. And being a big supporter, she's part of the green team, and so she's very gung-ho.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And then if you don't mind going to the next slide. So then, yeah, I just wanted to, you know, talk a little bit more about our program, right, with our composting. So our composting program is right now a big source of how we're reducing food waste. And we are in year 4 right now. So we can move on to the next slide. And we have partnered with Prince George's County Department of the Environment. And so if you live in the county, you know that, you know, if you get your recycling or trash picked up, you also are part of the county composting program. So as the county was looking to grow their residential composting program, we were trying to grow it with the schools. So we partnered together. It's been a great partnership. You know, we've had really good feedback about, you know, kids doing it at home, right, after they've learned at school. So both programs are very, very similar, work in tandem really well together and support each other. So they've been a great partnership with us. Our next slide. And when we started, you know, we started with just a few schools in Laurel, a couple of high schools, and they get a big shout out because they were really instrumental in, you know, the initial, how do we get off the ground? How do we really do this? How do we, you know, figure out some challenges? So they were amazing to work with us on that and really dedicated and have continued the program. And we can go to the next slide. And then, of course, I won't get into this with this group because we all know different reasons on why to compost, but I always have to talk about why, right? Why is it important, and give that out so we can move on. But, you know, a lot of our food, as we know, is thrown in the trash and goes to the landfill. And so with this program, we are diverting a lot of material from the landfill. So if we go to the next slide. And so here is our list of our current composting schools. And as I mentioned, we're about 4 years in right now. And so with our amount that we have diverted from the landfill over the last couple of years, it's growing. And so last year we were over 300,000 pounds. And then this year so far, like by end of November, we're at 133,000, and it's growing fast. And so as we're increasing the number of schools, as we're changing to compostable containers more and more, all those things are helping us be able to divert from the landfill. And also, you know, the other thing we've tried to do is get schools all over the county, different kinds of schools. So elementary, middle, high school, you know, K-8, regional, we have an early childhood center, and so try to get a real diversity there so that we can see. And then, of course, all those school buildings operate very differently. So it's been great to see that the program really works at all these schools. So we can go to the next one. And so what goes in the bin? Well, any food scraps go in our bin. So if it's cooked, if it's raw, if it's fruit, vegetable, if it's cheese, if it's bones, all of that goes in. One item we do not put in is milk. Milk we don't put in our compost because it's the facility where all this goes, which is over on 301, the county facility. They really can't handle a large volume of liquids like the milk. And so they don't want it, and logistically to handle that on site is a nightmare. So unfortunately the milk can't go in there, but everything else can. And then also, you know, uncoated paper like that greasy pizza box, our lunch tray, those are napkins, not tissues. We don't want your germy tissues, but all those other things can go in. And then if we go to our next slide, we also now have these compostable containers, which we are really excited about. And Food Nutrition has been awesome with this because this has helped the program a lot. And last year we started with those. This year it's, come on even stronger. So part of our numbers of our waste diversion numbers are growing in part because of all these different containers. And so we had some of these already that actually we're already using that were acceptable, but some big ones that we've switched to are something like the Spork packet. So now our Spork packet, there's no straw in it anymore. It's completely compostable, the napkin, the spork, the wrapper, and that is a great change for us because before the spork and the wrapper would have been trash. And it was also a contaminant for recycling and a contaminant for composting. And then some of these other ones we use, like the little cups and that clamshell, that hinge container, things like that, we use very frequently in our lunches. And so now, instead of the kids having to empty out food, they can compost both the container and any food remaining in it. So it simplifies our sorting, it increases what we can divert from the landfill, but it also makes the program simpler. And so that simplified message has really helped because, we tell kids, you can do food, right? No milk, but we're doing food. And then we start focusing on these different containers. And on the right are the two types of containers. Those are the markings that we really look for, especially on ones that look like plastic. So if it's BPI compostable, or if it's that number 7 PLA, and it's got to say PLA at the bottom for it to be compostable. Those are the two things that our county facility will accept. And so these items that are coming through that are packed on site in our school kitchens, they have been pre-vetted. And so we know they work. And so that has made just everything run down the line really well. And just a quick note, if you see number 7 without the PLA, it's recyclable, but the 7 PLA, compostable. So, okay, so we can go to the next one. And then just a review, so we're all on the same page. With our schools, we're talking about off-site composting. So we're not managing the materials on site to produce the compost. What we do is we use bins like those green toters. They are filled in the lunchroom, like you saw a little bit in the video. And then they are collected, they're taken to the county facility over on 301. And they are processed in a matter of weeks, really, into the compost. And then it's sold locally as leaf grow. So, different retailers will sell the materials that we're helping to produce. So next slide. And just, also to reiterate, this is a, a closed loop, right? So, we're not growing all of our own food for the schools per se, but for materials that we are producing here, or, we are avoiding them going to the landfill, they are processed in a compost and then it can be applied back onto the land, right? So that's why the composting is, of course, a great way to divert and best utilization of the resource. Next slide. And of course, with this program, right, our students are key. And so the student leadership piece has been really fun. The way that the students are involved, their passion for it, their excitement, and then just the creativity. And so the leadership piece of, whether it's in the lunchroom or whether it's things like, doing announcements or, research projects, right? Or all these different ways that we're trying to get the students to be a part of this, even for kids that, maybe they don't want to speak in front of their peers in the middle of the lunchroom, which I get, but they have lots of ways, of course. And so we're always looking for different ways to, pull that in. So that's been a really wonderful part. And the program, of course, would never work without our students and their passion for it. So next slide. And you can click, I think, twice more. So this is just to show you with the program, not on that, just, oops, sorry. Yeah, sorry, just this slide. Yeah, there you go. So this is the lesson that we give out as part of the program. So the lesson is, the central question is, there's too much trash, what can we do? And so the lesson, looks at kind of waste management, right? So it hits on reduce, reuse, recycle, compost. And so this is part of the lesson that the teachers, do with the students in the classroom before we're starting the program. And so to lay that foundation and to also kind of preempt, right, when we get to the lunchroom, people know, okay, this is why we're doing it. This is what, some of the things are we're going to be sorting, and there's that familiarity. So this has been great. The other thing that's new this year is a K-5 lesson in science curriculum for the third week of the science curriculum. And so that was another lesson on waste management that is also really coming at a great time for this program, for our waste reduction efforts in general. So these have been a great way that the Schmidt Center created the lessons and has been a wonderful partner to help really push a lot of this through. So if we could go back to the slides and go to the next slide. Then I just wanted to, talk a little bit more about our share table, right? So the composting program at this point is doing a lot of the pound reduction that we are able to measure. But our share tables, they play a really important role in reducing food waste and giving students a second opportunity to consume the food on site. So if you're not familiar, they are designated stations where students return whole or open food, and they can then take a serving if they want an extra serving. So there's a couple of rules, things like, the items have to be sealed in the packaging as if they were new. Fruits can't be sliced or have a bite out of them. So with this, it's something that PGCPS had already been practicing, but we are working on finalizing an administrative procedure, and that will help to clarify some of the things about the share table and how to properly do a share table, and then also, suggestions on best practices, that kind of thing. So also with that administrative procedure, food donation to a local food pantry is included as an option to schools. So if after a share table is utilized at the end of the day, if those materials, there could be the potential for a school to donate that to a food pantry rather than have to dispose of it. And then the other program, if we go to the next slide. Oh, and I should say for the share table, there's no items from home go on there. So the other part of is offer versus serve. And so this is part of, USDA promotes this program, and this will be included in that administrative procedure I mentioned. But offer versus serve, it reduces wasted food by allowing students to choose the foods they want to eat. And some of this is already practiced, but I found that there was a lot of confusion around this. So we want to kind of clarify that and do a little bit more education to clarify things like students are not required to take all items offered for the meal, and they're not required to take a milk. So there has been a lot of confusion on those 2 points. So for every meal, there's the 5 basic components, like you can see in the photo at the bottom there: protein, milk, fruit, vegetable, and grain. So students must take 3 of the 5 components, and one of those has to be a fruit or a vegetable. But you can see on the right-hand picture, there's no milk, but it has a fruit or vegetable serving. And so that still counts as an acceptable reimbursable meal from the school lunch. So this is something, on the front end, right? The reduced part that we want to try to make some more headway with, so that if a student knows they're not going to drink the milk, that they don't have to take it. It doesn't have to leave the milk cooler or the serving line in the first place. If the student takes the milk and then they decide, you know, I'm not going to drink it, it can then go on the shared table and be offered, you know, again, perhaps for some other student. And then if it's at the shared table later, perhaps it could go to food donation. So we kind of have a couple of different ways to try to reduce and best utilize the food. And if we could go to the next slide. And then I always have to tell everybody, we have recycling and composting data, yay, right? So I mentioned some of our composting data, but this is all up on the website. So this is up there to view, but our recycling data is viewable as well. And so, you know, this is something we keep, you know, working on and growing. And of course, in the waste world, right, I don't really want to see more recycling and composting. I really want to see less trash. So that's kind of, you know, my ultimate goal, but you get less trash by recycling and composting more, as well as the reduce that we talked about. So that's some of the things that we're doing. I think that was my last slide. So I think, yep. So anyway, so that was just kind of, you know, about some of the food waste stuff we're doing. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Ms. Morrison, do you have any other, anything else before we move to questions?
No, I do not. Just checking the list. I still don't see Ms. Kirkland, but I guess there'll be other opportunities for her to introduce herself. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We will make sure that's scheduled, and for the student video, I commit to working on making sure the full sound and everything is at least shown at some point in our meeting or possibly another board meeting. It looks like it's a
Right.
fantastic video. So I'll go ahead and recognize folks raising their hands. I see Kate to go first, and then followed by David. Thanks.
Hi there. Thanks, Sarah. That was a great presentation. My question is, are you currently doing like push communication or like where you're giving all of this information to everybody and they get to decide if they want to do it or not? Or are you just waiting for people to come to you and say they're interested and then you include them in the program?
Composting for the share tables, like what specifically?
For all of it. I mean, like, how are you promoting it, and is it getting promoted equally across the PGCPS schools, or is it based on interest?
Yeah, so with our composting program, what we've done is we typically have like I can't remember exactly what we've termed it, but essentially we have like a little 30-minute like info session, I guess, right? Is where we just tell people like, hey, you know, here's some information about the program. We promote it out to schools and say, you know, come to this program. We'll do, you know, a 20-30-minute presentation and tell them kind of what's involved with it. And then from there, you know, we have been working on things like, yeah, making sure that we have different kinds of schools, different, all the different districts are, you know, covered. We do require the principals to, you know, commit, right? Like to have, you know, that like, yes, my school definitely wants to be in it. So we've definitely been working on trying to get it out and have, you know, schools that are interested, schools that don't know about it. I mean, so it's kind of been a mixture. Sometimes schools are contacting us, sometimes we're putting the word out and then they show up or they talk to each other. So it's been through a whole a range of ways, really. You know, but at this point, our composting program is, you know, we're still growing, but we, you know, we'd love to grow a little further, a little faster, but you know, the funding and the people resources is a bit of our bottleneck at this point.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question. Do you have a capacity for how many schools you can handle in the program right now? And how do you have goals on how you incorporate more schools along the way? And then when you're promoting Do you hear that funny noise?
That's the 2.5 minutes, but go ahead and ask.
Oh,
okay.
oh, I was like, and then just the other one is like when you're promoting these 30-minute sessions, like what way, how are you doing that? Just because I want to, be able to communicate that to schools that we talk to.
Yeah, no, great question. So as far as, right now, it's myself and our partners with the Schmidt Center. So with this program, it requires a lot of on-site time. And so that is a bottleneck for us. So, we'll do a training with everyone, so we can do that collectively. But when it comes to being in the school, being on site and that time, that is the people resources for that period is a challenge, just because, we're talking about staff that already had a full-time job. And, part of this is, it's just so having that, and then everybody eats lunch at the same time, right? So you can only go to one school in a day. So things like that have been a limit on our capacity. And so, that's one challenge. Also, at this point, we don't have a dedicated line item. I mean, I guess, Dorothy, I'd throw this to you, but we don't have a dedicated line item for composting in our budget. So that has been, I don't know if you want to speak on that, Dorothy.
Yeah, well, yeah, we didn't. So we're currently in FY 2025, so we don't have a line item. However, I did include a line item for FY 2026, which will start July 1st, 2025. So assuming it gets approved by, the board, then we'll have a line item for composting.
Yeah, and so yeah, so that'll be great for, hauling for supplies, but the staff time is really at this point a limit to how fast that we can grow. So that's going to be a challenge.
Thank you.
All right, David?
Thanks. This is sort of a tangential question, I guess, regarding the school trays and what kids can get on them. The milk was what made me think of this. Do you know if the milk is always dairy milk or if it can be other things? Because I know that lots of kids may, be lactose intolerant and things like that. And so, and it was previously the case, or it might still be the case, I don't remember, that you needed a doctor's note to have the option for a non-dairy milk option, and wanted to know if that had changed or if there were other options that kids could get that wasn't just dairy milk. And I realize it's a little bit kind of out of what we were talking about, but it was on my mind as you were presenting, so I wanted to know if you knew.
I don't have an answer on that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think that would be more food and nutrition to speak on that. So I can't answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can probably find out and, maybe just shoot you an email or something. And who was that? Who was that asking the question?
That was me, David Noto.
David, okay.
And I could also add that board member Lolita Walker from District 9 is very interested in the alternative milk products of soy milk, and is engaged in the changing landscape for public schools and food and nutrition programs. So there may be more on that to come. And I think that all totally fits into the climate change action plan of, the plant-based options. So I'll let her know it came up in the meeting, because I'm sure she'll be happy to find advocates in the school system to work with her. So I'll take a note of that. And Michael's next.
Hi. So, sorry if this is redundant, but I was wondering, so you said that schools were informed about the composting through like 30-minute information sessions that were sent out. was the share tables and like the OT, what's the where people get to choose what they take, is that also included in those nutrition and or in the composting sessions, or is that a separate thing? And if it is a separate thing, how do you let schools know about that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the share table guidance and the offer versus serve really is housed in food nutrition services. So those are really USDA guidelines for food nutrition departments for schools. And so that typically would be done through that department. So we've partnered and I've spoken with the new food nutrition director. And so, you know, she's very amenable. But with, you know, previously with PGCPS, our previous director, I know she had communicated with different schools and, you know, about some of those guidelines, but there was still confusion and there wasn't anything on our website. There wasn't anything really posted to get rid of that confusion and to officially, you know, clarify what we can do, you know, that we can do it, what we can do, what we can't. And so it was really hard for people to find that information. But we also didn't have anything that said, you know, on PGCPS letterhead, for example, right? So you'd see something from USDA, not from us. So that was really the impetus of creating the administrative procedure, which is, like I said, hopefully it's going to be finalized pretty soon. And then that will be the way that it is clarified. We can do this. Here's how, you know, and should really answer a lot of the questions for schools. And that would be posted on the website. It would be shared with staff and shared throughout. And it would be great to have, you know, student advocates that also, you know, are a part of that because, you know, part of it is going to be new behaviors and new procedures, right? Both for the staff and for the students. So having students also, you know, tell their schools about that would be great. So and I know, sorry, Donald, I'm going to call you real quick because I know Donald had done a lot of work with our student advocacy groups. And so maybe, you know, that is a way, you know, we might be able to partner and kind of share that information and then have students also be a part of that as well. And we'd be looking for other suggestions, you know, if you guys have other ways to help us spread the word, you know, we love that. But I think at this point, we're hoping to finalize it, get it approved, and then that will really be a big part of it. But, you know, food nutrition, you know, having them help to do some education training, but also with our other staff, and then, yeah, communicate out to students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And were you asking Donald Bell to come on and answer a question if he's able at this moment?
It's always welcome to chime in.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see him jumping on, so he might, you know, be driving or something. So if he does jump on, we'll certainly circle back. Next is Christina.
Hi, yes. First, I wanted to start off with just a comment and just say how amazed I was by the presentation in terms of the scope of activities. I love that there's a curricular connection and that the Schmidt Center contributed that. It's so great to hear that it's not just the actions, but there's also the learning that's happening too with those actions. I was just curious because when you mentioned the budget line item and everything and the cost of this program, because generally when we think about like switching to compostable materials, there, you know, the price sometimes gets in the way. And I was surprised to hear that the schools that were engaged in this program have also switched to the compostable sport packets and all these different things, and was curious what the cost is of the program. And while I would absolutely love to see my kids' schools adopt this program, I do worry, like, is the cost going to be a barrier to adoption, not just the interest? So yeah, I just wanted to hear your reflections on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so the cost, I can say, just having remembered seeing some of that from before, because the items that we're using compostable, that's actually Food Nutrition. So they source the supplies and it came from them. But I do remember part of the discussion with that was, it really tends to vary per container, right? So some of the items we already were using, like we use a white double wax paper bag that was, what if we're individually bagging, say, lunches, that goes in there, that happened to already be compostable. So that was great. Our lunch tray was already compostable, right? So there were already some of these things that were already using it. Some of the things were more or less cost neutral to switch to. A couple of things were more expensive. But what Food Nutrition did is they actually switched everything. And so, it's not just our schools that are composting that have those items. Every school uses that same lunch tray. And I would think that, part of that was, to your point of the cost, right? The cost per item. And so instead of having to switch those things later on, it, with the volume and the way that we're purchasing, it helps with that. The other thing I will say about the program and the cost for it, other districts are also coming on board with this, right? Like our neighboring districts, like in District of Columbia and Virginia and Montgomery County, all these neighboring districts are switching over to compostable containers. So that also helps to bring the cost down. And then with things like in the state, they're helping to reduce, the amount of food waste and things that are going to the landfill. So all these different things are kind of moving in that direction. And so as we get, just more and more, like our county program with the residential composting, right? All of those different things, it seems to be that the price is coming down because it is a more common item and just all the adoption. So sorry, maybe that wasn't quite as much on your the detail, but yeah, so but right now, like all of our schools use that tray. All of the schools are going to be using the that clear cup, that's compostable. And so, that has made it easier for us so that when we're looking to go to another school, right, we already know they're going to have the standard items. And so also like our kids that are going to go to a new school next year, right, that school will also have the same items. And so that also helps us grow the program as well.
That's so awesome to hear. Thank you so much.
And I could also jump in on that question of costs from the board perspective. The board did deliberately ask, I think we did this 2 budget cycles with Dr. Goldson, where we did ask Food and Nutrition Services to fund the compostable materials, and it was over $1 million investment. And so the board had that investment separated out at the very end of the budget cycle so that we could begin the work of the Climate Change Action Plan. And so then it became rolled into the next budget. So that's what I would expect, is that those, and to Sarah's point, that hopefully these items are actually going to drop in price year over year. But the board did make that early commitment in the Climate Change Action Plan. And from my vantage point is that, we have always said that there will be some upfront costs to the work of the Climate Change Action Plan, but this entire operational shift in the system from energy to the waste and composting is going to be how we are able to operate this massive school system over time and not continue to have the escalating costs on the operation side, because we want to keep every dollar we can in the classroom. So those early investments, I think, are going to pay off. And it was great to see all the materials. As a board member, I didn't even realize all how extensive the materials are. I do remember the spork packet. So I knew that one in and of itself was a custom request that would cost more money.
Yeah, beat because it's not as common as the other one across the country. You know, it seems like most school districts use that standard packet, so it was very cheap, and so to switch to something different seemed to be a much more expensive. Yeah, and you know, the other challenge we have in this program is food that's pre-packed off-site, right? When it comes and it's already pre-packed, those don't come in compostable containers. So, you know, we've been advocating for trying to, you know, if we can reduce, obviously, but also if they can be in a recyclable container, that is much preferred. And so we like that. But with our compostable containers, it is all the items that are, you know, packed on site. And currently, yeah, many of them, we have compostable options for them. I think there's still a few, and some of our challenge items are things like the plastic bags or the cellophane. You know, those are just things that are a tougher item. And so in the composting schools, in their trash, a lot of it is, you know, chip bags, candy wrappers, cellophane, plastic bags, you know, that kind of stuff is just, it's a challenge item. And also the little sauce packets are another one. You know, there's no compostable option for that. So as we go, we keep, you know, kind of, you know, like that window, right, narrows, and it's like, uh-oh, those sauce packets are kind of in the crosshairs. So we'll see if we can come up with better ideas for that. But yeah.
Yeah, I see Kate's hand. Go ahead, Kate.
Hi, thanks. I have one clarification question and then two questions, but maybe suggestions. So one clarification question I have is, do schools have to go through you to be able to do this? And meaning like the composting folks come and pick up at the school. So is there some sort of certification process that has to go on from the school with the Office of Sustainability? That's my first question.
So, well, currently yes, if they're doing the offsite composting, we need to partner with them. Yes. So we have, and I mentioned the department, Prince George's Department of the Environment, but I failed to mention our other big partner, which is City of Laurel. So City of Laurel also supports their schools and has been at the forefront, right? They really helped us get started. So they do the collections for their schools. So for the other schools, not in City of Laurel, we're really working on, you know, the logistics and helping with their collections, that kind of thing. We also help with, you know, getting them off the ground, right? Giving them the support and the resources. So if there was a situation, say another school got a grant, you know, they had a way to have the hauling, you know, that might change that part of it, but we would still be there to support them and to help them get the program off, you know, get it up and running, because we just find that, you know, the time on site is really valuable. And then also having that, you know, we're using a lot of the same items in the lunchroom, you know, so we have a lot of those resources and trainings. And so we would want to collaborate with them on that. But I mean, we're at this point, like I said, the time, people, resources is a little tight. So, you know, I guess we're always looking for volunteers, right? We always got spots available, but
well, that's
so,
actually my second question is, have you thought about a train the trainer type of thing where there could be certified people at the schools or different schools that are interested that would learn the policies and the procedures and be able to do like the training and kind of check the boxes with the principal and the folks in order to help facilitate that?
So at this point, we haven't quite gotten that far. I mean, would that be like a outside volunteer you're thinking?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a community coordinator or if it's a like a volunteer at the school that's in the system. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm asking if you guys have thought about that, if what's the flexibility of like perhaps getting more man and woman power and people power on helping you guys out so you can scale it up if there's interest.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick, and I'll let Sarah can answer that too. I mean, I think that volunteers are always welcome. Obviously, if it's somebody that's already within the school system that's vetted, a teacher or what have you, that's awesome. If it's somebody from the outside, they would probably have to go through various background checks because dealing with students. But I think once that's done, I don't see any reason why we couldn't, with somebody from the community wanting to help a neighborhood school, that would definitely be welcomed, just as long as all required background checks have been met.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good to hear. And then my last question and suggestion. I know I saw some metrics, some numbers on pounds at the beginning of your presentation. I mean, my only suggestion would be, if you as you scale up, get as much baseline information as possible, because I think being able to see and have that story of the cost per school to do this program, the amount of waste reduction, the school, the student sentiment and staff sentiment, like all of that stuff, and being able to start capturing that, I think it would be great, and it would support your program as you move forward.
Definitely. Good suggestion.
Kate, do you have any more?
No, just one clarifying question. Do you have the capacity now to include additional schools like today? Or are you at capacity right now?
So we are still trying to determine if we're going to be able to include additional schools this school year. So I'm not certain yet.
So Sarah, I think the goal was trying to get it up to 45, right? Right now we have like 29 schools. Is that number accurate?
We have we're about 30, and so
30.
our goal was to be up to about 40 by the end of next school year. Yeah. But yeah, so it, like I said, again, at this point, this year we added on 4 schools because that's what we had the staff capacity for. And so that has been the bottleneck. And so, yeah, like figuring out, if there's a volunteer kind of network thing that we can do, I think that was great. And just, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you.
Christina?
And I would definitely be interested in helping out. So just put my name out there.
Awesome.
Email me.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Christina?
Yeah, I just wanted to also build off of Kate's comment on the tracking of things. Some of the insights, Sarah, that you raised in terms of the challenge items, like the sauce packets and the outside packaged foods and things like that. I think if you're also able to track data on that, I feel like those items aren't necessarily on the radars of many people who are thinking about how can we support systems and how can we support sort of the supply chains and the downstream effects of like what it would mean to really make schools zero waste schools. Because the sauce packets, I mean, this is totally out of PGCPS's hands, right? So if more data could be collected, so we understand what's the volume of the things that we just can't possibly, in our current system, manage to eliminate. And I think with more data, we can advocate with other companies or just create more awareness around the gaps that are needed needed to be filled in terms of innovative solutions around things like that. So just beyond tracking like the actual impact, the baselines, and how what the impact of these initiatives are, I think it's also tracking the data on some of those challenging aspects, because I feel like I have not, in my research, have not seen much on numbers in terms of these kinds of items. So it'd be just good to know. And then, you know, the research community, the policy community can do more advocacy around that. So thanks.
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that I think that is great feedback. And I would say as a school district, we need to look at what we're purchasing, right? And it's really on that purchasing side, because we could look at, you know, what are we purchasing, what kind of container it comes in. And that's part, you know, that's in our climate change action plan, is to really look at, you know, what are we purchasing, why are we purchasing this, and what are the different options. But for breakfast also, right? Breakfast is like the really, really big challenge when it comes to waste reduction and the pre-pack. We have even less options there. And so, you know, yeah, to your point, I think if we maybe highlighted some of our breakfast of what the packaging is, but that is, you know, I see other districts getting the exact same breakfast that we get, and that's a big challenge for us for sure.
I see David's hand up.
Thanks. You just mentioned about the breakfast. Does it matter if that's a like Maryland Meals for Achievement breakfast, or like who is helping to fund that, or is that does that not matter in terms of the packaging?
Don't know the answer to that. I think that would be more, we could ask food and nutrition. So I don't know. I'm not as familiar with what breakfast items come in each program and how they are exactly the same and different, to be honest with you. So I think that I would have to follow up with food and nutrition.
The
but
Maryland
I-
Meals for Achievement meals are breakfasts that kids can be eating in the classroom, so they're all packaged up and ready to go. And so they're not eaten in the cafeteria. That was why I was asking specifically about that one.
And I mean, from what I see in the schools, you know, like I see lots of different types of, you know, breakfast items being served, and some of them are, you know, maybe individual items, and some of them come in individual items also wrapped in a cellophane packaging. And you know, so I'm not sure how much leeway food nutrition has with the breakfast program to choose. But I think that would be, yeah, we'd have to follow up with them about, you know, what their options are there.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Sarah and David and Christina and Kate. The questions around that piece of it with our new Food and Nutrition Services Director. I'm excited that we get to start at the ground level, that these are the important questions. This is the important data. And I'll go ahead and take chair's privilege with final kind of, I think, mostly comments. One, I want to thank the team for working on administrative procedures. I feel like as a board member, when policy is passed and then there's administrative procedures, you know the system is changing. So that is something that you know, that I'm like, this is a proud moment of our work. Like, we are making it into systems change. So thank you for reporting on that. It's the bureaucracy, and it might seem mundane, but it really, what it is saying is that this work is now permanent. So I want to thank you for bringing that up. I'm really, that last line of questioning is exactly where I've been around that waste. The challenges here, I get most excited about the challenges that are declared impossible, but people are trying to work on them. The milk challenge. I know the Maryland Milk Manufacturers and Dairy Council, they're asking the same question around milk waste in public schools. And so we have potential partners. So I guess that's more of like an offer of, like, these are, you know, let's keep finding our partners who are coming up with solutions. And one thing I will ask for administration to proactively insert the experts is that the Maryland General Assembly in Annapolis and is about to have another session. Universal meals is a priority for some of the delegates and senators, and certainly some from Prince George's County, including Delegate Ashanti Martinez. And the piece of this that's the waste piece really needs to be front and center for the universal meals expansion. And I'm asking for administration to be prepared for making sure that we are commenting on that piece of it, of the impact of that we're trying, this is what we're already sending to the landfills. We need to also understand how we're managing the food waste as we expand to universal meals, which is something that of course is seen very positively if the state can do this. So, but we have another side of it that could also be, to have us, like during the pandemic, all that food was packaged in all that plastic and cellophane, and it was just sent, so much of it was sent to the landfill. And we have made some strides since then, and I want to make sure PGCPS doesn't fall back while we're trying to do something very good and important for our families. So I'll end on that chair's privileged comment. And so, Ms. Morrison, before I close this out, do you have anything else, or Ms. Gillespie?
No, I do not, except just keep up the good work and together we will press forward.
Just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for spending an evening talking about waste and food waste. I love the passion in this group, and look forward to working more on this with all you all.
Yeah, well, we're grateful to you and your commitment and your years with PGCPS to be able to help us move these priorities. So thank you so much. And so we are now going to close the meeting. We are at item 3.1, closing remarks and adjournment. The next Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting will be held on February 19th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. And please continue to check the PGCPS board webpage for more information and updates. And I want to thank everyone for this meaningful discussion. There being no further business, the time is now 6:01 p.m. and the December 18th, 2024 Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting is adjourned. And I wish everyone great holiday season, and to all the PGCPS families and staff a great 2-week break. Have a great night.
Happy holidays
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.
Have a good one.
Bye now.